Okay, so one of the problems is, as I mentioned before, people who become homeless and as a result of that they've lost everything, their possessions, their documents. Because when you sleep rough, it's very easy to lose things because sometimes you stash things somewhere where you really haven't got anywhere safe to put anything. Or you might fall asleep and then while you're asleep your bag, your little rucksack gets stolen. Because you can't sleep well at night, so you fall asleep in the park or you fall asleep on a bench and people, your stuff goes. So a lot of people are undocumented, so that's the third. And we always start with a whole series of questions. Have you got a GP? Have you got your passport? And often people don't have their documents. So what we were able to do when we had funding, and we now set up a GoFundMe kind of crowdfunder to replace our funding, was certainly to replace the bit of our funding that we used to use to buy people's passports. So I think during COVID, I think we paid for around 66 passports for people, which was a really amazing thing to be able to do. And there's not very many organisations that are doing that. So it was kind of quite unique, and people were really stuck because unless you've got a form of photographic ID, it's really impossible to do anything else.
Earlier you mentioned one example of somebody who was on the 20-year route to get their status sorted. And this, as we know, is really common, that people get stuck in this very long immigration processes within the immigration system of being undocumented, having to constantly renew their status, their limited leave to remain, and with the no recourse to public funds that many of these people have, I'm guessing that the reason why so many fall into precarity and destitution and ultimately into these situations that you're describing is because of this system that is failing them.
Yeah, because they're waiting and waiting. Well, obviously, for example, Brexit brought into more kind of regulation around European migrants here. So that has caused a problem where if you have not got your pre-settled status, you can't work, and you can't get your pre-settled status without documentation. So there are still people in that situation. But the other people who are non-EU migrants are in a much kind of worse position because there isn't the routes are much longer and the wait is much longer, and if they can't return to their country of origin or don't want to, mostly can't because of reasons why they left in the first place. There's very little available for them, and very little that charities are doing, I find, to meet basic needs, such as the people that are kind of under the radar and just waiting out their time to try and make a claim for leave to remain. Eventually, they've got no support from the government or from the local authority. There isn't really anything. In fact, a lot in the local authority, they're restricted about what they can do for those people because they're not allowed to be given anything that's construed as public funds.